Coming to you from an undisclosed location, somewhere deep in the heart of the Santa Monica Mountains, I'm your intrepid host, L.A. Marzulli. Welcome to a very special episode. Did the CIA find the Bible's Ark of the Covenant? I mean, this is, right where we are, and it's. I'm not making this stuff up. This is from WorldNet Daily, and we'll get into that. First, a word from our trusted sponsor. Have you ever wondered what happened to the legendary Chuck Norris? I recently saw a video he made, and I was shocked. He's in his 80s and still kicking butt and working out and staying active. What's even more shocking is he's stronger, can work out longer, and even has plenty of energy left over for his grandkids. He did this by just making one change. He says he still feels like he's in his 50s. His wife even started doing this one thing too, and she's never felt better. She says she feels 10 years younger. Her body looks leaner, and she has energy all day. Chuck made a special video that explains everything. Make sure you watch it by going to chuckdefense.com/LA or by clicking in the link below this video. It will change the way you think about your health. Once again, that's chuckdefense.com/LA and click on the link in the description below to watch the video now. You won't believe how simple it is. Just a reminder, the legendary Chuck Norris is a whopping 84 years old and yet has more energy than I do. He discovered he could create dramatic changes to his health simply focusing on 3 things that sabotage our body as we age. Watch his method by clicking the link in the description box below, chuckdefense.com/LA. Just a reminder, folks, the legendary Chuck Norris is a whopping 84 years old and yet has more energy than most of us. He discovered he could create dramatic changes to his health simply focusing on 3 things that sabotage our body as we age. Check it out. Watch the link, www.chuckdefense.com/LA. Did the CIA find the Bible's Ark of the Covenant? Declassified documents spark flood of interest. The target is fashioned of wood, gold, and silver, similar in shape to a coffin, and is decorated with the seraphim. This is the direct quote from one of the remote viewers. So before I even delve into this, what we are looking at, allegedly, underline the word allegedly, is the CIA, and we know that they did this. Think of the movie Men Who Stare at Goats. Predictive programming, anyone? Telegraphing exactly what they're doing with a film from Hollywood where you sit there like this and watch the film. Have you ever gone to a theater? I'm going to digress here for a second. When you go to a movie theater next time, and we don't go anymore because most of it's just trash. But anyway, I digress as usual. When you go to a movie, if you go next time, pinch yourself, look around. Everybody's like this. They're catatonic. It's a one-way conversation. That person in the theater seat is staring at the screen. They are essentially comatose and are being pumped with information. We saw Men Who Stare at Goats because this is my wheelhouse. When it came out, we went and I said, wow, it's unbelievable. Nothing new under the sun. This is an occult technique. I used it. I've talked about this before. When I took Silver Mind Control, I was taught to create a workshop, a laboratory, and have 3 counselors there. My 3 counselors were Jesus, Curly of the Three Stooges, and the Lone Ranger. This is obviously pre-Christian. I'm about 21 years old here. It's several months or whatever before I joined the guru and went off in the ashram for 3 years. But in order to pass the test, the course, you went down, the instructor had a little 3x5 card in front of him. And there was something with the person's name and something was wrong with the person. So I would go down, or the person was being tested, we would go down into our laboratories and scan the person and ask our counselors, what are we looking at? Right? And then we would get impressions. It's very similar to remote viewing. Not exactly like it, but very, very similar. So let's continue with this article. So there's a picture of the facsimile of the Ark of the Covenant, dun da da da, dun da da. And it's a great movie, right? They find the Ark, and then they take it. Oh, we'll take good care of it. Next thing you know, it's in a crate, and it's going down this huge warehouse, and the guy's, got it on a dolly, and he makes a left-hand turn, essentially disappearing forever. Folks, I'll digress again. We have GLA, you haven't read one sentence yet. Okay, I'll get there. Here's the deal. We have a petition. lamarzulli.com. Basically, it's to hold the museums, and most of them are paid for and remain open by taxpayer dollars. We want an inventory. We want access. We want to know what you've got. And we have no access right now. You have to be an archaeologist. You have to be a degree guy and everything else. And even then, we were refused. There was a little artifact that we were looking at. And I had Rick Wentworth, who teaches anthropology and geography at one time when he wrote the letter, he was doing this. And we were denied. We got right up to the end, and then bam, Native Americans came in and said, and put the kibosh on it. That can't happen anymore. We deserve, because either that or close the museum down or give back all the artifacts or do something. Why can't I examine the artifact? We wanted to see if there were tool marks on it, because we believe that you can't create this artifact centuries ago. We don't believe it was a Native American artifact. So, sign the petition. Palm Beach, Florida. Has the biblical Ark of the Covenant, the golden box containing the Ten Commandments, been found? After countless years of speculation, not to mention the 1981 blockbuster Harrison Ford film, Raiders of the Lost Ark, resurfaced declassified documents claim the CIA located the holy relic in the Middle East with psychic and ESP help as part of an experimental secret project called Sunstreak in the 1980s. So this is from Red Pearl Drifter. Project Sunstreak. This was the CIA's attempt to locate the Ark of the Covenant using remote viewers in 1988. Let's walk through it. If you remote view, you go down, very similar to what I did. You go into an altered state of consciousness. By the way, folks, this Sunday I'll be interviewing Fritz Zimmerman, and also after Fritz, Vicki Joy Anderson, the author of, wait for it, it's here somewhere. They only come out at night. We're very proud to publish this book. I'll be interviewing Vicki, and we'll be talking about the new film Nosferatu. So that'll be aired next week, just whetting your appetite. So remote viewing, you go into a altered state of consciousness, and you have a target. You're not told what you're looking for. You have a target. Look for this. And remote viewing works. There's nothing new here. It's an occult technique. Absolutely nothing new. It's been around for thousands of years. Occultists know about it and use this. When I was in the occult, like I already said, I participated with this. I also went on vision quests. So all this is real. The viewer they used claimed to have found it. It was being guarded underground by entities in the Middle East. So you can read the full document PDF download here. Good morning. I would like to present a brief overview of the Project Sunstreak, giving a few points of its historical background, definitions of its basic words, and explanations of what is accomplished by our project. This briefing and the information it contains is classified, secret, special access information. Now, is this real? I have no way of vetting this. Absolutely no way of vetting this. The document that you see here can be created. What is the truth? How do you know what you're looking at? You don't know what you're looking at. How do you know whether that was AI generated or there's the real thing? There's no way to tell. Let's continue. The Ark of the Covenant was created in Old Testament times when God instructed Moses to create the container, which holds not only the stone tablets on which the Ten Commandments were written with the finger of God, but also a jar of manna and Aaron's rod that miraculously sprouted blossoms and almonds. Folks, I believe that they're going to find it. Or let's put it this way, if they have it, at one point it will be revealed. Think about that. So let's continue. The New York Post reports in a remote viewing session on December 5th, 1988, remote viewer number 32 was tasked with identifying a target that, unbeknownst to them, ended up being the storied Ark of the Covenant, according to document which is declassified on August 8th, 2000. So that's 25 years ago, and we're just hearing about this stuff now? Logistically, when a remote viewer is tasked with searching for a target, The desired object is written down on a piece of paper and put into an envelope. The remote viewer does not know what is written and is guided through the process by another person. Retired U.S. Army Chief Warrant Joe McMoneagle, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, explain. So here's another one. CIA document says the Ark of the Covenant was found in 1988 through secret tests, remote viewing. Trump has a perfect copy at Mar-a-Lago. So what you see on the bottom right, use my cursor here, this is the Ark of the Covenant. There was also a perfect copy at Prophecy of the News years ago. So let's continue. Information collected under this protocol is the only information that can be identified as remote viewing. Remote viewer number 1 was the first to do the psychic phenomena experiments for the CIA, and he is not convinced by the exercise memorialized in the declassified document. Remote viewer number 32's vision described a secret Middle Eastern location of the object, which they don't know is the Ark, but they say is protected by entities. Wow. Now, again, I'm going way off on a limb here. There's no way to vet any of this. What do you mean protected by entities? Angelic beings? The good guys, the good angels, right? We don't know. We don't know what we're looking at. Target is a container. This is a quote from one of the remote viewers. Target is a container. The container has another container inside of it. The target is fashioned of wood, gold, and silver, similar in shape to a coffin, and is decorated with the seraphim. They relayed per the file. Visuals of surrounding buildings indicated the presence of mosque domes. They said, adding that the Arabic-speaking men dressed in all white populated the area. Well, this could easily be, Jerusalem. There's no doubt about that. The target is hidden, underground, dark, and wet, were all aspects of the location of the target. The purpose of a target is to bring a people together. It has something to do with ceremony, memory, homage, the resurrection. There is an aspect of spirituality, information, lessons, and the historical knowledge far beyond what we know now. Remember, the Ark goes missing. So let me give you a brief history lesson here. We know that the Ark of the Covenant goes missing. So when the Babylonians come in, the Ark is not there, right? We believe that Jeremiah hid the Ark of the Covenant. But where did he hide it? My late business partner, Richard Shaw, had access because he was a filmmaker and he did the Torah codes and he was part Jewish. Most people don't know that. Rick was part Jewish. He was a born-again, spirit-filled Christian, but his lineage, his birthright was part Jewish. His father was Jewish. So he was treated in Israel like a celebrity because he created the Torah code film, and he was given access to this tunnel which goes for miles underneath the city of Jerusalem. He sent me pictures. He was there. He was underneath. He was with one of the head archaeologists. They were flying drones. I mean, it was amazing. And he was looking for the lost Ark of the Covenant. And I said, Rick, you got to be careful here. You got to be careful. And a short while later, he passed away of a massive heart attack. I am not connecting the two events. I am not. But Rick was on the trail of the lost Ark of the Covenant. Remote viewer number 32 then expounded on the more mysterious aspects of what they saw. The target is protected by entities and can only be opened by those who are authorized to do so. This container cannot be opened until the time is deemed correct. Once it is time to open the container, the mechanics of the lock system will be found to be fairly simple. They said before adding a warning to potential plunderers. Individuals opening the container by prying or striking are destroyed by the container's protectors through the use of a power unknown to us. Let's continue here. Here we go. The channeler also described what they took to be a devotional aspect of the object. The purpose of a target is to bring people together. It has something to do with ceremony, memory, homage, the resurrection. There is an aspect of spirituality. We've already kind of talked about that. So they're kind of reiterating that. As World Net Daily reported in 2003, relic hunter Ron Wyatt said he actually saw the Ark in the 1980s after tunneling through a small passageway buried below the purported site where Jesus was crucified on Mount Moriah in Jerusalem. Again, that's all hearsay. Ron carried that on his deathbed. A lot of people believe in what Ron has said, and who am I to dispute that? It's so easy to be a critic and go, well, we have no proof of that. Look, when I get stuff like this, I put it on the back burner. I'm reporting on it today because I find it really interesting, especially because if we really are in the last of the last days, then we know the temple will be rebuilt on the dome, on the Temple Mount, and we don't have to destroy the Dome of the Rock or anything else. It can be built, and there'll be a wall. Ezekiel tells us about this. There'll be a wall that goes up. It's either Daniel or Ezekiel, forgive me. There'll be a wall that separates the court of the Gentiles from the Holy of Holies. They're going to bring the Ark of the Covenant into the third temple. There you go. So let's continue here. A replica of the Ark of the Covenant of President Donald Trump's home at Mar-a-Lago. Interesting. Very interesting. Wyatt died of cancer in 1999 after years of searching for biblical antiquities, claiming to have found Noah's Ark near Mount Ararat in Turkey, the remains of Pharaoh's chariots that chased Moses through the Red Sea, and the true location of Mount Sinai in Arabia. You know what? Noah's Ark, you can check that one for sure. The chariots, you can check that one too, in my opinion. And Mount Sinai is in Arabia. The Caldwells were there. The Caldwells were there. I think it's Jim and Penny Caldwell. Shout out to them. And they were the ones, in my opinion, that really broke the story. Really broke the story. The whole area was at one point surrounded by a fence. I just want to know the truth, whatever it is, said Richard Drives, president of Wyatt Archaeological Research in Cornersville, Tennessee, was spearheaded an effort to hunt for the Ark 22 years ago. That search effort reignited debate over whether or not the Ark is even located there, since many theories have sprouted concerning the container's whereabouts. Some claim it's currently in Ethiopia. Let me stop you right there. So there's this whole thing where the Queen of Sheba is with Solomon, and they, put a replica in there. There's something there in Ethiopia. There's no doubt about that. Is it the real Ark? We don't know. Others have suggested the box is hidden in Spain, Canada, Elephantine Island in Egypt, the Baltic Sea. So there's all sorts of places where it could go. I'll tell you one story that I heard decades ago where they found a passage underneath the Temple Mount, and they went into the passage, and there was the Ark. There were animal skins draped over it, and when they went to get the rabbis, by the time the rabbis could come down, the Muslims had sealed the whole thing off. Now, that's a great story. And that's why all these stories, folks, I put into the stew pot on the back burner, because you just don't know. There's no way to vet any of it. But I do find it interesting. The Bible's final mention of the Ark recounts King Josiah's order to return the chest to the temple. Put the holy Ark in the house which Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel, did build. It shall not be a burden upon your shoulders. Here's a great shot of what it may have looked like as they're bringing the Ark of the Covenant. You know what? And I get it. You have Raiders of the Lost Ark and all this other stuff. But the Ark did exist. It did. And when they dedicated the temple, remember, the Ark of the Covenant was in the temple behind these huge curtains. At the time of Jesus' death, there was no Ark. Think about that. There was no Ark. There's also apocryphal stories, get this, that when the Christians, this is after Jesus' death, so Christians are in Jerusalem, and they are told by the Holy Spirit to leave Jerusalem. And so the Spirit, which was in the temple, went over to the Mount of Olives and sat there for a period of time, like a year. And then it went back into the temple one last time. It opened up the east gate. It used to take 50 men to open up the east gate. It opened up the east gate, went back up to the Mount of Olives, and then went up. The Jews looked at this and said, well, that's a good omen. The Christians left Jerusalem, AD 70. The rest is history. Is that an apocryphal story? Could be. Again, back burner stuff, but I find it interesting. Okay. Spiros, I know I'm going to butcher this one. We'll just call him Spiros, editor of the Hebrew-Greek Keyword Study Bible, expounds on the ark's possible fate subsequent to that verse. It may have been carried away by the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar, along with other saved articles when he plundered the temple. I don't believe that. I do not believe that. Since no reference is made to the ark by Ezra, Nehemiah, or even Roman historian Josephus after the captivity, it is believed that there was no ark in the second temple, and that the Holy of Holies, where the ark was situated in the temple, stood empty. I just weighed in on that, and that's what, when Jesus is crucified and he's on the cross, the temple veil is there. That temple veil is ripped from top to bottom. Remember, this is like the temple that Herod really restored and others, and it took years to accomplish, but there is no ark there. Think about that. Biblical scholar and modern-day relic hunter Mike Sanders, who has gained notoriety with his Biblical Mysteries programs, believed that the original ark was destroyed by a different pagan king, and a replica was constructed to replace him. The ark was certainly taken by the Egyptian king Shishak, Sanders told WorldNet Daily. There were obviously subsequent copies made, as there were of all the other temple accoutrements, which were also looted many times over the centuries. This has enabled the myth makers to come up with many wild and wonderful scenarios. Saunders believes the ark's contents, the stone tablet etched by God with the Ten Commandments, are located in the foundation deposit of an Egyptian temple he discovered in the Judean hills. Hopefully, we will extract the context live on the internet and on television sometime early next year when the situation in Israel is somewhat safer. Sanders is among those critical of Wyatt's assertions about the ark. When he was alive, I spent some time asking questions and asking for evidence regarding his claims. None was ever forthcoming to me or anyone else. Okay, in those areas where I have done some investigations, he has proven to be a charlatan. So that's a real strong statement, and I get that. And it's so easy to be critical of someone who's, died in 1999. That's 26 years ago. So it's so easy to do that. And, Wyatt can't defend himself, but and we'll get to this next sentence in just a second. Just days before his death, Wyatt granted an interview to WorldNet Daily and addressed such criticism from his detractors. There's nothing that can be done to prevent ridicule that I'm aware of, Wyatt said. I don't think it would be appropriate to deny people the opportunity of using ridicule because I think that's part of showing their true character. And you'll notice we don't disparage anyone here. We don't. People have a right to believe what they want to believe and express that. That's called free speech. I might not agree with your free speech, but you have the right to say and think, as a person and to put that out there. I have the right to disagree or agree with it, but I'm not going to disparage you. I'm not going to be, it's so easy, and look, I've lived through it. Marzulli and the Nephilim and all this stuff. It's the sons of theft. This is false teaching. And I've been called everything. I've been called a heretic, the false teacher, a prosperity gospel guy. It's all, after a while, you just go, oh, what else is new, right? And that's just the way it is. But I think my work stands alone. And I think the work of Ron Wyatt, stands by itself. You can be critical of it, but frankly, we don't know. There's no way to vet his claims. Let's continue. During the interview, Wyatt explained he found an earthquake cracked directly below the place where the wood on which Jesus was crucified would have been. The cleft extends down through the rock to the resting place of the mercy seat, representing God's throne atop the Ark of the Covenant. The blood of Christ would have flowed through that crevice after his death and after his side had been pierced by a soldier's spear. Let me stop you right there. This is right next to the Garden Tomb. I've been to the Garden Tomb. And that is called the place of a skull. It does look like a skull, and I'll grant Wyatt that. And allegedly, that was the place where he found the ark. But here's the alternative argument. My business partner and I, Gil Zimmerman, are working on a film, Holy Shroud, Holy Fire. Now, when the Jews were finally kicked out once and for all, in Jerusalem around AD 130, 135, the Bar Kokhba Revolution. That was it. The Romans had it up to here. They booted everybody out of Jerusalem. So the Romans were there. They built on the Temple Mount, which still exists today, and I've been to the Temple Mount, the Temple of Jupiter. And then at the crucifixion site and the resurrection site, they built the Temple of Venus. Fast forward roughly 300 years, Constantine becomes emperor. Christianity is now embraced. Helena, his mother, Constantine's mother, travels to Jerusalem. Where are the holy sites? Where was the crucifixion? Well, the people, the locals there, know exactly where it was. Well, the Temple of Venus is built over the spot. This is why I take issue with Wyatt's claim, because I believe because of the edicule, the slab is there, and we have pictures of all this, film of all this coming up in our film, but I digress. Okay, the Bible teaches that the concept of sacrifice of animals, symbolic of the actual blood sacrifice Christ would make. The act of Christ regarded by some as the great high priest, permitting himself to be sacrificed and placing his own blood upon the mercy seat, was the great and final act in the process of blood sacrifice, according to Wyatt's writing. And while Wyatt believed the ark itself would never be moved from its current location, he thought the laws of God inside it would eventually be removed and put on display as a testimony of the world. This last revelation is for the inhabitants of the earth who don't have a clue, as well as for those of us who do have a clue and have been commissioned by Christ to reach out and help bring these people who don't have a clue into the fold, Wyatt told WorldNet Daily. So these are tools that God has given the believers to strengthen their faith and to reach out with. They are tools that will be extremely effective in these last days, pouring out to the entire population. So now what I've done is I've got the, which was at one time classified documents, and I've gone on and I've linked into the PDF, and it's kind of lengthy. I'm not sure how much time we can really get into this, but Project Sunstreak deals with the use of psychoenergetics and the collection of intelligence information, i.e. remote viewing. Psychoenergetics is defined as shown here and is broadly subdivided into two classes: mental effects on the physical world, purely mental collection of information. So psychokinesis, physical actions performed by mental powers; ESP, telepathy, remote viewing, perceptions which cannot be explained by no sensory means. And let's continue and see what we can glean from this report here. So they, using several apparently gifted psychic subjects, the most notable of whom were Pat Price and Ingo Swann, okay? These scientists conducted several CIA-sponsored remote viewing tests. So let's continue. So I just sort of skimmed through this file. It's basically a nothing burger. There's nothing there. What I do find interesting about this is just like the Giza Pyramid stuff that's coming out. And by the way, folks, I have written to one of the scientists there in Italy and asked him to come on the show. We'll see what happens with that. But there's a couple of things here. I think we're in a window of time where all this stuff is being revealed. At the same time, we have the advent of artificial intelligence and chat GPT, which, you can create stuff out of the blue. And how does that work? I'm going to show you guys something here in just a second. So Mondo and I had tables right next to each other in Orlando, which is great because we can, bounce stuff off of each other and have a great time. And Mondo's a good friend. And he was introducing me to Chat GPT. And so I typed in the search box, create a Nephilim giant in a desert scene. And about 20 seconds later, this is what popped up on your screen. This is what popped up. What happens is, now, obviously that looks very, very fake, very cartoon-like. And I went back and I said, make it look more real. And it made it look like this. So the first one didn't look quite like this, but the second one did. If I were to pay an illustrator to do this as a book cover or whatever, $1,000, $2,000. So this is where we are. The point I'm trying to make is this, that you've got the advent of AI, and it's moving. We had Josh Peck on a couple of weeks back, and the new chips, the new quantum computers. I mean, what are we looking at here? Then you've got all the turmoil in the Middle East. And a really close friend of mine was asking me, why the anti-Semitism? Why the virulent anti-Semitism that we see globally? And I replied, I said, well, the Messiah comes from the line of David. That's your reason. And the world hates the Messiah. They really do. They really do. So Israel is back in the homeland, Amos 9:14 and 15. And please don't write telling me that these are not the real Jews. We've heard this argument. If I hear it one more time, I'm going to scream. I will bring back the captives of my people, Israel. Check. They will build the waste cities and inhabit them. Check. They will also plant vineyards and drink the wine from them. Check. They will plant gardens and eat the fruit from them. Check. I will plant them in their land, and never again will they be plucked up out of the land I have given them, says the Lord your God. Folks, you've got Israel, you've got AI, you've got quantum computing, you've got the possible fulfillment of Ezekiel 38 and 39, you've got a global village because of the internet and satellites. You got the idea of a one world government, a one world religious system, which I talked about at the Prophecy Watchers Conference. How do you get there? It's really quite simple. And we are fast approaching some sort of revealing, some sort of an event. And then these guys come down. And I'll say it one more time, and I'm going to close with this. UFOs are real, burgeoning, and not going away. This is the coming great deception. However, when we go up, they come down. We go up, they show up. Here's a tract that we have right here. I'm going to close with this. Here's a tract. If you order anything on our website, lamarzulli.com, rungsofdisclosure.com, $10 DVD set, and Ashley will be here, and she's a lot better looking than I am, thank God, and she'll tell you all about Rungs of Disclosure. But we also have a new commercial by Ashley talking about the 10-box DVD set. But I want to read this to you because it's really important. There is a potential. Remember, this is channeled information that came years ago. I first heard it when I was in the New Age 50 years ago. And here it is. It's in our tract. It explains away the rapture of the church. There is a potential for many people to leave the planet in an afternoon. The people who leave the planet during a time of earth changes do not fit here any longer, and they are stopping the harmony of the earth. Folks, we're giving these things away. If you want like 50 of them, give us a donation. I want to thank Brad Myers for helping with that. And, all the folks who have helped get this out. We were giving them away like crazy. That's it. I promise you that's it. But I think we're in a window of opportunity. I think it might be sooner than any of us think. We are, look, one more thing before I go. Ellie, you said that three moments ago, right? But here's the deal. Toynbee, a famous historian, said that history is cyclical. Empires rise, empires fall. It just repeats itself. And in some ways, he's right, and I understand that. But when we plug in the biblical prophetic narrative, everything changes. We see history, even though it's cyclical with the rising and falling of empires, it's climactic. It's headed towards an apex. It's heading toward what? The return of Jesus, who will reign 1,000 years in Jerusalem, not Walla Walla, Michigan. That's our blessed hope, that we go up and we'll be with him. We'll ride down with him. The armies of heaven rode with him on my horses, dressed in fine linen, white and clean. Revelation 19, I'm not making this up. I think it's soon. That's all I'll tell you. I think it's soon. I could be wrong. My hand is on the plow, I'm not escaping. That's why we do a show every day. Thanks so much for watching. I got a little long-winded here. We'll see you soon with another adventure into the Nephilim, UFO phenomena, and the supernatural. Thanks for watching.